Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 204. We're talking about the Fantasy Football Experts mock draft. We're going to break it down. Joined by Kenny Ortiz of FantasyJabber.com. How's it going, Kenny?
Bro, I'm feeling great. I was in Mexico for a couple days, and now I am back in the United States, and just trying to make the world a better place, man. You know, just teaching a couple classes, just trying to shape young minds. Some would say indoctrinate, but that's probably not the wisest word to use publicly. That's a private word we use, right?
Right. You were saying that the world was not becoming a better place despite your efforts. So I was saying that you should either try harder to make the world a better place or just stop trying completely. And you're leaning toward the latter, I think, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's becoming an easier and easier choice these days.
Nice. How was the trip to Mexico, by the way?
Oh, it was fantastic. We're celebrating my sister's quinceañera. For those of you who are not familiar with Hispanic culture, it's the Sweet 15 party. We do a big deal. In fact, in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries in Latin America, the quinceañera is actually a bigger deal than weddings.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge party. And let me tell you, Mexicans know how to party. I'm actually Puerto Rican, but my mom got remarried when I was in high school to a Mexican man, and then they had two girls. So my sisters are half Mexican, half Puerto Rican, and they're like 20 years younger than me, and 22 years younger than me, my youngest sister. And so big thing. So I go there, and they do a Catholic mass first. They're all Catholic in Mexico, and so we do a Catholic mass at 1:00, and then a little bit after 2:00, we go over to this banquet hall, and I say to my stepdad, "Hey, how long is the party going to go for?" He said, "Oh, probably like 10 or 11. And I thought he misunderstood me, actually. I said, no, Miguel, when are we going to leave? Like, when is the party over? He said, like 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, no. We left at 11:50 p.m. The party, there's 3 meals, multiple dessert courses, all kinds of ceremony, dances, and best part, stilt walkers. Wow. with holsters with holsters on their belt holding tequila bottles, and so pouring tequila into people's mouths. I made a determination right now, and one of the stilt walkers had LED lights on his shirt. I made a determination: if you don't have stilt walkers at your event, I'm not going. Listen, if you have a wedding, if you have a party, and you don't have stilt walkers, the RSVP from Kenny is no. It's stilt walkers or bust. The Mexicans taught me how to do it this past week, bro.
Wow. Well, I'm glad we had our wedding already. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there because we didn't have stilt walkers. But...
No, you missed out, man. You missed out.
Yeah. Well, we did have a crazy thunderstorm that almost electrocuted a lot of people. So maybe that's like a close second to stilt walkers for an event. Anyway, it sounds fun. I'm sorry I missed it. I was worried about you didn't send a postcard or anything because we didn't get to record last weekend or anything. But it sounds like you were busy having fun, so that's really cool. So anyway, I took part in this Fantasy Football Experts mock draft with several websites like Fantasy Sharks, Football Guys, etc. This draft took it was over the course of like 2 weeks, like maybe like 10 days or so. Each of us had 6 hours to make a pick, excluding night. Like I think they shut off like midnight to 6 a.m. It was 18 rounds, 12 people in this league. It's 3 receiver PPR format. We're going to break it down. So I'm going to read off all the picks by round, and then you're going to share some of your thoughts. And you said you're going to criticize some people, which I'm very much looking forward to because I want to see who gets the criticism. Hopefully not me, but definitely if I made bad picks, definitely call me out on them. All right, so the first round. So Alvin Kamara went first. Then Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson. Those are the first 5 picks. Then I was on the clock at 6. I took Le'Veon Bell. 7 was Melvin Gordon. Then DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Todd Gurley, Davante Adams, and then Michael Thomas to finish off the first round. So what sticks out to you in the first round?
I guess the other thing, this sort of stuck out to me as I'm reading through this is sort of, I think, the dilemma that a lot of people are going to have this year going into 2019 in the first half of the first round. And that is there's not a consensus I feel like, I mean, there's been a couple of years in the past where there's not been a quality consensus at the top few picks, but I feel like this one is it's been a while since it's been this sort of diverse. And so I'm looking at all of the guys being drafted. Now, in most cases, you would not consider a wide receiver in the top few picks, but in a 3-receiver PPR league, that is the one format that I would say taking a receiver toward the top of the first round might actually be worth it. If you look at the VBD numbers and you do the math, it actually, in some cases, could make sense. I'm not going to do it, but you could make an argument. So I think you can make an argument for literally the first 8 guys that came off the board here. You could make an argument. The 2 guys that I think are a little bit higher draft than I went, David Johnson, to me, I love his talent, but he feels like a risk factor to me. Coming off the injury, coming off of that team, we don't know what to expect with that squad. I'd be nervous to take him. And then also Melvin Gordon, and I love Melvin Gordon. I think I've been the biggest Melvin Gordon fan almost of anyone over the last few years. I love him, but I'm a little bit concerned for some regression on Melvin Gordon. So I think generally there's nothing super crazy here. I think Juju's probably a little bit higher. I think I would like Julio Jones here over in the bottom of the first round. But I'm also not a big Davante Adams fan. I know you and I have disagreed on Davante Adams for a while. I'm not a huge Adams fan. I just don't think he's good. I think he's okay, but I don't think he's phenomenal. And I think he's overdrafted. But overall, not a crazy first round. I happen to be a big fan of Lev Bell. I love Lev Bell, and I love the pick. I think you can make a case that Lev Bell will end up being the number 1 running back overall. So getting him at 6, a little bit of a risk, but I'm willing to take that risk there.
Yeah, I love Bell this year. I think he's going to be determined to prove that he's worth the money he was asking for and he didn't get. I agree with you on Gordon, especially with the Chargers saying that their left tackle Russell Okung may not be ready for training camp, and it's like this guy's he's had injuries in the past. If he's not there, that offensive line is horrible. I think it's one of the worst offensive lines if they don't have Okung.
I mean, it's bad with him.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's risky. I don't know if I take him that early. What about Todd Gurley at 10? I know we've talked about this before. What are your thoughts on Gurley? Because I feel strongly about it.
Yeah, I guess we talked about it a few weeks ago. I go back and forth. I don't hate the pick at 10. But I also can understand if maybe I think you're probably going to say, hey, I'm not touching that guy till late second, early third, probably in that range. And if anyone decides to pass on Todd Gurley because of the injury, I can't blame you. I think 8 or probably 10 is probably a little early in this format. With the 3-receiver PPR, it does bump up the value of the receiver position, enough where I think he's tied with a lot of the receivers. I think he's in the same range as an Antonio Brown or Julio Jones or an Odell Beckham. Or maybe even an Adam Thielen or Mike Evans. You could make a case for any of those guys ahead of Todd Gurley, which would push him down to the late second, or maybe even to the early third. So I think it's not a terrible pick, but I understand if you say, man, it's a round too early.
Yeah, I always say that you can't win your fantasy draft or your fantasy league in the first 2 rounds of your fantasy draft, but you can lose your league in the first 2 rounds. If you draft busts in the first 2 rounds, you're not going to win your league. Unless you like nail all of your other picks, which is unlikely,
really hard to come back from that.
Exactly. Yeah. And who has a higher bust potential among the players in the first round than Todd Gurley? I don't think anyone does, considering his injury.
Yeah. Considering it's the injury, right? That's the thing. But if he's healthy, right, we know how good he is, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure. But when I hear arthritic knee for running back, that sets off huge red flags. Not only that, the Rams lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen this offseason. So even if Gurley were completely healthy, I would still take him first, I guess first overall. But I would be concerned about a bit of a drop off. I don't think he's going to have as good of a year as he did last year if he's healthy. I think he's going to decline a little bit, even if he's healthy, which I don't think he will be. So for that reason, like you said, I wouldn't take him until the mid to late second round area. And having said that, I'm willing to bet in one of my 6 leagues that remaining. I feel like I'm going to get him in the mid to late second round, because what happens is like I'll label someone a bust, and then because everyone in my league reads the site, no one's going to take him. And then like Gurley's going to follow me. This actually happened a few years ago with Le'Veon Bell. I didn't like Bell one year, and I was drafting like 11th, and he fell to me at 11, and I took Bell, and like someone was like, but Walt, you don't like Bell this year. I'm like, I don't like him at number 3 or 4, but 11 sounds good to me, you know?
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be like that. I feel like I'm going to get Gurley in one of my leagues just randomly, but I don't like him. Not in the first round. All right, let's move on to round 2. The first 6 picks before mine were Dalvin Cook, Julio Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Antonio Brown, and Odell Beckham. And then there was my pick, which was Adam Thielen. Then the next 5 picks were Mike Evans, James Conner, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, and Stephon Diggs to finish off round 2. So what stands out to you here?
Well, number one, Patrick Mahomes is way too early. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. He's a great, he could make the case. By the end of this year, he may end up being the best quarterback in the NFL. That is well within the realm of possibility. But quarterbacks should not go early. And when you draft a quarterback at this point, when you draft a quarterback in the second round, you are banking on him having an outlier type season. And it just doesn't happen. I've been doing a little bit of research on quarterbacks who had outlier seasons. You know, guys like the Peyton Manning, the 2004 season, the season Donovan McNabb was having, you know, through the first 8 games of 2006 before he tore his ACL. Tom Brady in 2007. You know, Tom Brady in 2000 and, you know, whatever the most recent year he threw a bajillion touchdowns. You know, like, you know, even Michael Vick in 2010, you know, for the first 11 games of the year. I mean, you've had a couple moments over the last couple of years where quarterbacks just were out of their minds, right? And Patrick Mahomes had that sort of season last year in terms of numbers, right? 50, the offense had whatever, 65 touchdowns they had as an offense, or 68 touchdowns, whatever the number was. In every single case, the next year, those offenses all regressed, usually between 8 to 15 touchdowns is the norm. And now, even if Mahomes is great again, just by the sheer the sheer number, or the law of averages tells you they're going to take a step back. You add in the fact that they don't have Tyreek Hill potentially for half the season or a chunk of the season. This is a total, absolute terrible pick by who's that pick? I got to call him out. Pro Football Chase. Listen, Pro Football Chase, I don't know who you are, but you're dumb. Anyway, let me see. I think I would, if in almost every single pick I would disagree, but none of them are terrible other than the Patrick Mahomes pick. Like, if I'm picking number 1 overall, a number 1 in the second round, I'm not taking Dalvin Cook there. I'm probably taking Julio Jones in this format. You know, Travis Kelce, there's no way I'm taking a tight end in a 3-quarterback PPR league. Antonio Brown, I probably would have taken him faster. Adam Thielen, not a bad pick. I probably like Mike Evans more than him. I probably like Joe Mixon more than him. In fact, I love Joe Mixon. You know, Joe Mixon is one of my man crushes. I think I'm going to probably end up having Joe Mixon in the bottom of the first round in most of my, because I just think he's potentially he's got the talent to be the number 1 overall player. Like, I mean, Mix is the kind of guy that could be the number 1 draft pick in every fantasy draft next year, because he could have that kind of season this year. So I think generally none of these are crazy. All of these are within the realm of where they should be, except Patrick Mahomes. I think I like your Adam Thielen pick. Not bad. I just think I like Mike Evans and Joe Mixon a little more.
You know, to counter that, I mean, this is a 3-receiver league, so I really wanted a receiver coming out of the first 2 rounds. So it was going to be a receiver for me. I was hoping for Odell Beckham, and he didn't get to me. He went 1 pick earlier, so I went with Thielen. I like Thielen. I wasn't in love with the pick, but I thought it was fine. With Joe Mixon, so the one piece of news we had going to this week was Jonah Williams, the Bengals' first-round pick, out for the year, probably with the torn labrum. Does that change your stance at all on Joe Mixon? Because without Williams, I feel like their offensive line is a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely impacts it. Sometimes it's just I mean, Melvin Gordon's a great example of a guy who's played behind a terrible offensive line and still produced. I think for a lot of players that would shake me, I just believe so much in Joe Mixon's talent that I think he's the type of guy that can still overcome that. Definitely would like him to have all the best talent he can in front of him. But he's the kind of guy that's not going to dramatically shake my confidence in him as it would with there are other players that would make me much more nervous about.
Yeah, I mean, talk about not playing with talent. Outside of AJ Green, that Bengals offense has nothing. I don't like their line. Andy Dalton's subpar. And then you have AJ Green is obviously a great receiver, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy the past couple of seasons. So, and then of course, Tyler Eifert. So, we'll get some later, I guess. Round 3, the first 5 picks before mine were Leonard Fournette, Damian Williams, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, and Derrick Henry. And then my pick was T.Y. Hilton to finish off the 3rd round. And there was Aaron Jones, A.J. Green, Tariq Cohen, Zach Ertz, Josh Jacobs, and David Montgomery. So what are your thoughts on round 3?
I am not a believer in Damian Williams. I think I'm going to end up being maybe a little outlier on him because I've seen him ranked as high as like top 10 at a lot of sites. To me, he's more like in the 20 range. Like he's a low end RB2. I just don't think his talent is great. And I'm a little bit nervous about that Chiefs offense regressing. And I know some people will say the argument is, well, who else is there? Maybe they just throw the ball. Heck, maybe they just force feed it to Travis Kelce, or maybe Patrick Mahomes is just like spreading it around a bunch. I don't buy the argument that, well, he's going to get all the volume. I don't buy that. So I don't love Damian Williams in that spot. I feel like it's high. Amari Cooper is another guy that I just can't trust. He's got all the talent in the world, right? The guy's got all the talent in the world. But he's been so inconsistent in his career. And I know with the Cowboys, he looked great, but he had moments with the Raiders where he looked great too. And we saw him fade more times than not. So I don't trust him. I got to be honest. I think it's like a full round too early for Amari Cooper. I'm not drafting him in almost any format unless he completely drops. I don't trust him quite a bit. Your pick, T.Y. Hilton. I don't love only because of the injury history. So it makes me nervous. But when you're in that position, the three running back or the 3 receiver tight PPR league, the receivers get inflated. I'm looking at who would I have drafted in this spot ahead of, T.Y. Hilton. Are there any guys that I absolutely love more than T.Y. Hilton? On talent, I like A.J. Green more, but as you mentioned, that offense, not phenomenal. A lot of injuries there. Keenan Allen was probably the guy I would have loved to have gotten in that spot, but he went just 2 spots ahead of you there.
Yeah, I was really hoping for him to drop to me.
Yeah, and really, now that I'm seeing his name, really Keenan Allen probably you could make a pretty strong case that he probably could have gone in the 2nd, even to some extent, right? I think he's the guy that's just always great. Maybe you can make an argument for Brandon Cooks, but not. I think there's about 10 guys you could have taken there in the middle of the 3rd round, and I think all of them are fine. I think taking the tight end or the quarterback positions, the onesie positions, at any point early in the draft are just a huge mistake, especially in 3 receiver, especially in PPR. And I know some people say, well, aren't tight ends more valuable in PPR? And the answer is no, because all tight ends that are more valuable comparatively speaking, but they're not more valuable than other positions. When in a PPR league, basically you're scoring more points. In a standard league, your average team may be scoring 90 points a week. In PPR, you're going to be scoring 120 points a week or whatever your format may be. Well, that simply means now there's more points spread between more positions, which means ultimately the onesie positions are worth less. They have a smaller market share. So I'm already have a disdain against taking quarterbacks and tight ends early. But in PPR, I just think it's a big mistake. I think it's always the wrong move. And I'm in this year, in any mock draft I've done, I'm not looking at a quarterback or tight end really to like round 9 in most cases. So I just think it's a big mistake. But I love being in the leagues where guys do it because it pushes down talent.
I agree. I couldn't agree more with that philosophy. Unless you're in a league where you start two running backs, two receivers, no flex, then I could see taking a quarterback or tight end earlier than I normally would. But in a format like this with three receiver PPR, you were talking about the Mahomes pick. I agree. I love Mahomes as both a person and a player. Like, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
But second round in a three receiver PPR league, you can't. I don't think you can do it, especially early in the second round. And then tight ends. I agree. If Kelsey's here in the third round, I consider him because Mahomes doesn't have anyone else to throw to until Tyreek Hill comes back, or I guess Sammy Watkins might be okay. But other than that, I wouldn't draft any of these tight ends either in the third round. If this were a two receiver league, I would have considered Aaron Jones in my pick. I love Aaron Jones this year. I think he's going to have a huge season if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. No, it's a big if, but I think Aaron Jones' potential is like off the charts. And yeah, with Hilton, I agree with the injury history is concerning, but look at the receivers left after Hilton. Like, it's so barren. There are no receivers left. And in a three receiver league, I just felt like I had to take a receiver at this point because it just, that position is so thin. And I think you can draft the running back later.
Yeah, I guess I would lean toward the running back. If I had Aaron Jones a little high, you're a little higher on him than I am. If I thought they were close, I would have gone running back there because I am more confident in my ability to find receivers late in the draft and off the waiver wire than I am running backs. The running back depth, I feel like, is always harder to get. Remember last year, I was trumpeting the idea of don't take receivers early. And I ended up with some guys off the waiver wire bums, that ended up being great. I mean, I got Deshaun Jackson in multiple leagues. In both of my leagues that I went to the championship last year, I had Deshaun Jackson. I think I drafted him. He was undrafted in one league and went really late in another. Robert Woods I got late. There are a couple guys that I drafted late. I have more confidence in the ability to find receivers late. So if there's a tie, I'm going to go to running back. But in this case, I would have T.Y. Hilton a significant step above Aaron Jones. You may have them closer than I do.
It's interesting you say that because I like my personal feeling is that I do better finding running backs late. Like last year I got Adrian Peterson late. I got Nick Chubb late. Like I feel like I find these running backs late. It's weird that we both think that way about different positions, and yet I guess we come to the same conclusion about finding good players late. I don't. It's weird that happens that way, but yeah. Anyway, moving on to round 4. So the 6 picks before mine were George Kittle, Kerryon Johnson, Sony Michel, Marlon Mack, Mark Ingram, and Brandon Cooks. And then I drafted Devontae Freeman. The rest of the 4th round was Robert Woods, Julian Edelman, Tyler Lockett, James White in a trade, and then Kenny Golladay. So what are your thoughts on round 4?
James White is probably when we start doing our bust list later in the summer, James White will probably be very near to the top of my list. So spoiler alert for those episodes that are coming in a few weeks. Because he's not that good. I have eyeballs. I've watched him play. He's not that good. I don't care what anyone says. It's faux stats. And I know LeGarrette Blount was similar in that, like, we saw LeGarrette Blount score 18 touchdowns in that offense. And like LeGarrette Blount, in my opinion, is a better player than James White. And we've seen LeGarrette Blount not be able to replicate that. So we've seen the Patriots, we've seen guys in that offense because of the system, because of Tom Brady, because of the coaching up they do with the offensive line, because Bill Belichick's a master. They got guys on that team that luck into stats that they are not good enough to repeat. I'm telling everyone, please, I beg of you, please listen to me. James White should not be drafted. I'm not kidding. In the first 8 rounds of your draft, I don't care what the format is. I know that sounds extreme to some people. He's not. He's not. Don't do it. Don't, please. I beg of you. Who is this? Hassley from footballguys.com. And I like footballguys.com. I think they got some smart guys on that website. But Hassley, whoever this guy is, specifically traded up to get James White. Bro, I got some beachfront property in Wyoming I want to sell you. Anyway, I like the Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram has a chance to really overachieve. I think that I like him a lot. Kerry Kittle, I love as a player. But I just can't take a tight end here in the 4th round. So, but I love Kerry Kittle now. And
Kerry Kittle.
I'm sorry, did I say Kerry Kittle? George Kittle.
It's a mid-90s basketball player.
Oh yeah, if anyone doesn't know, Kerry Kittle played for Villanova basketball, and then he played for I think he played for the Nets for a few years, didn't he?
Yeah.
He bounced around maybe, and anyway, he used to wear the really tall socks up to his knees.
He did. Yeah.
Anyway, so okay, so George Kittle. Sorry, George Kittle. Okay, by the way, and we'll talk about this breakout players. George Kittle should have had way more touchdowns than he actually had last year. Statistically speaking, if you look at the typical average over the last 20 years for tight ends, how many touchdowns they score per yardage and receptions, the average would be about 10 or 11 touchdowns. So, and he only had 5. So with a better healthy quarterback, just by accident, he should have 8 or 9 touchdowns. Even if he regresses in yards and receptions, which is possible, or I think even likely based on the number of yards he had, I think his touchdown number goes up, and he's probably equally or greater value than he was last year. So I really like Kittle a lot. I'm probably going to be higher on Kittle than most people, I think, going into this year. But the top of the 4th round in this format, still just too high for me. I can't do it. Kerryon Johnson, not sold on him. I'm not sold on his talent. Sony Michel, not sold that he can stay healthy. I'm not sold. Marlon Mack, I'm not sold on. I'm not sold on Davante Freeman either. I know that's who you drafted 7 there. I'm not sold that he's, he can stay healthy. I know Tevin Coleman's gone. But they like to spread the ball around. So I'm in the middle of the 4th round, the PPR, it's fine. It's not like a terrible pick. I think the Robert Woods pick, I think, is a little high, and Tyler Lockett's a little high there as well. As I look at the 5th and 6th round, there are several guys that went in the 5th and 6th that I would prefer over some of the guys that went in the 4th.
Yeah, it didn't sound like you liked any picks in the 4th round. Yeah, I don't blame you either. All these guys have injury risk attached to them. I agree with you on Freeman. I don't expect him to last the entire year, but I expected him to go in the 3rd round. I was kind of surprised he lasted this long. See, like Marlon Mack go ahead of Freeman, where Freeman at least he can produce when he's healthy, whereas Marlon Mack had like 2 great games at the end of last year, and like everyone's hyped on him. But we saw Atlanta improve its offensive line this offseason. And what you said is true. Tevin Coleman is gone, so Freeman is going to get more carries. I know they spread the ball around, but Freeman is their only like real viable running back, I feel like, at this point. I'm sure they're going to have someone develop, but I like Freeman's upside. Although I will say his floor is pretty low.
I probably, if I'm you in that spot, I may have taken Kenny Golladay. I am really high on Kenny Golladay. I'm going to probably end up having Kenny Golladay on a lot of leagues. I'm really high on him a lot. I in my early rankings, I have him right now. I would take him as the 15th best receiver off the board. And I think I don't know where he is right in here, but he's more like the 20-something receiver off the board. I didn't get a chance to count how many receivers have gone off of this, but I like Kenny Golladay a lot. I would take him above. I would take him up before Tyler Lockett, before Edelman, probably at this point. Definitely taking him before James White in this round. I'm taking him before any of the tight ends or quarterbacks. I think in the middle of the 3rd, T.Y. Hilton and Golladay to me are close. I've got Hilton as my 13th best in PPR right now. I got Golladay 15. So I think I like Golladay a lot. I just think he's a legit talent. And I want to have him on my squad as much as possible.
Yeah, I like Kenny G too. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't take Freeman, I think I would have considered Golladay. I like him as well. But I thought Freeman, I have him pretty high. I think he's going to bounce back this year. But like I said, his injury history is a little troubling. So the 4th round, so the 5 picks before mine, or the 5th round, the 5 picks before mine, Calvin Ridley, Aaron Rodgers, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, and DJ Moore. And then I drafted Sammy Watkins. The other 6 picks were Andrew Luck, Allen Robinson, Alshon Jeffrey, Mike Williams, Chris Carson, and Jarvis Landry. So what are your thoughts on round 5?
I'm realizing that in the middle of the rounds, there's about 40 picks between kind of pick 28 and like 68, where it's going to be all over the map. I mean, you're going to have a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people. Part of that just has to do with the evolution of the NFL, where there's so much offense. There's so many more yards and points to go around that you have a lot more players that are viable. And it's more sporadic. So from week to week, you're going to have one receiver get a touch, one catch, 18 yards. And the next week, that same receiver will get 10 catches, 167 yards, right? Like it's going to be so much more inconsistent, but overall way more fantasy points being scored. So I think that basically leads itself to being much more diverse in the middle rounds. I think of all these picks, like, I don't think any of them are terrible except DJ Moore. Well, I guess let me just mention Aaron Rodgers. I guess I've already said this a bunch of times. I'm not taking a quarterback there. Like as great as Aaron Rodgers is, I'm not taking a quarterback in the fifth round, no matter what. So that's gonna be my bias going in. So I don't need to rip every quarterback pick, I guess. But DJ Moore, I'm not a believer in this guy. I have him right now ranked at 34th overall as my receiver. I'm not even sure I like him that much. And I'm seeing him being drafted as a receiver 2 on a lot of fantasy squads. This to me is absurd. This is way too high for DJ Moore. I don't think he's that good. I think he's okay. But I think there's a lot of options on that offense that are just as good, if not better, that I think, and they're going to spread the ball around a lot, which is kind of been Cam Newton's MO anyway. He forces the ball to one receiver and then he just runs a lot. And then everyone else kind of gets scraps. Is DJ Moore good enough to be the guy that Cam Newton's going to force the ball to? I don't think so. So I think this is a really significant overpick. Obviously Andrew Luck there. Sammy Watkins, your pick. If Sammy Watkins is healthy, if you're going to tell me he's fully healthy, I would say, hey, it's a good pick. Probably should have gone higher. I had Sammy Watkins in 2 leagues last year. And even when he plays, you just don't know what you're going to get from him because he's nicked up every other week, it seems like. So I'm probably staying away from Sammy Watkins most of the time, but I understand the pick. If I'm picking there and I'm you, I'm probably taking Alshon Jeffrey. I think he's better than Watkins and plays through injuries better. But I understand the pick.
Yeah, I'd say Jeffrey's floor is a lot higher, but I think Sammy Watkins' ceiling is a lot higher than Jeffrey's because if Tyreek Hill suspended, as we think he will be at least a half a season, Watkins is going to be Patrick Mahomes' number 1 wide receiver, and that offense, I agree that it's going to regress. But Watkins, we saw when he's healthy last year, like he was very productive at times, like especially toward the end of the season. He had a big performance in the playoffs. And before he got injured, he had a great game, I think, against the Broncos in like week 8. So I think his potential is just off the charts, but ideally I would have drafted Watkins in round 6. The problem is that there weren't that many options at receiver. You pointed out Jeffrey, but I like Watkins a little bit more than Jeffrey. But yeah, I agree with you on DJ Moore. I guess I like Moore a little bit more than you do, but I still think round 5 is way too early for him. And you're right about Cam Newton. He does spread the ball around. And the big problem is that he runs in a lot of touchdowns. So you're going to lose the touchdown potential from your receivers in Carolina. So that's the problem. And then Greg Olsen is going to vacuum in 6 to 8 touchdowns too. So you have to worry about him coming back healthy. So I think DJ Moore could have a better season as a real player than a fantasy player. So yeah, I would not draft him in the 5th round.
Mike Williams also, by the way, probably a little high for my blood. I think he's better than DJ Moore, but I think it's a little high. Mike Williams scored. I was talking about George Kittle, not Kerry Kittle. I was talking about George Kittle scoring way too few touchdowns for the pace at which he was going, and that he is just the law of averages say he's going to score more touchdowns next year. Mike Williams, the exact opposite. He should have scored half as many touchdowns as he did. It's sort of the nature of the law of averages. Like people always regress back to the mean. Like me in golf, I've got a 27 handicap. And, by the way, anyone who doesn't know golf, that's really bad. So if I go out and I hit if I hit a birdie on a hole, that's really good. I should not assume that I all of a sudden have gotten better. I should assume that I'm going to get back to the mean my normal, which is double bogey status. Terrible, not good. Like that's the nature. Like, you know, so if some receiver is in a system and has the talent to really be about a 6 touchdown kind of guy, and then 1 year he scores 10 touchdowns. Well, unless we see something on the film that shows us his talent level changed or he progressed, we should assume he's going to bounce back to being the 6 touchdown kind of guy. Mike Williams is a 6 touchdown kind of guy, not a 10 touchdown kind of guy. If you're drafting him in the 5th round, you're expecting him to get closer to 10, not closer to 6. And you're going to end up regretting that pick. So I think that's too high for him.
Yeah, I agree that his touchdowns will go down, but I think his yardage will go up because Tyrell Williams is gone. So I think Williams might get more targets. Regression to the mean is definitely likely for Williams. You're talking about golf. You're at 27 handicap. For golf, I am just handicapped because I can't golf. So one Christmas, it was a few weeks before Christmas, my wife was like, do you want golf clubs? Like you always talk about wanting to go golfing. I'm like, yeah, it sounds nice, but I don't think my back can handle it. And so she's like, well, take a practice swing without a golf club. So I if you're on YouTube, you can see. So I started swinging without a golf club and I threw out my back just like without a golf club. So that ended my golf dreams right there. So I'm envious of you, even though you're a 27 handicap.
Which is really bad, by the way.
Well, better than being just handicap. So round 6, the first 6 picks before mine, Tevin Coleman, then Darrell Henderson, Phillip Lindsey, Deshaun Watson, Darius Geis, and then Kenyan Drake. My pick, Temple's own Robbie Anderson.
Come on, baby.
I am willing to bet that you like that pick. Then the next 5, Tyler Boyd, Evan Ingram, OJ Howard, Baker Mayfield, and then Corey Davis to finish off round 6. So what do you think about this round?
These picks are better than what we've seen thus far. I think there's some risky picks though. Kenyan Drake. It's like, Kenyan Drake was my number 1 like breakout player last year. I had him on virtually every team. I spent a huge amount of money in my auction league, and he was a total bust. I was so pissed off. Thank God I had in my big money auction league. I spent $35 on Kenyan Drake. To $250 cap. I spent $35 on him. The saving grace in that league for me was that I got Adrian Peterson for $4 because he signed on a Monday at 4 p.m. as a free agent, and the draft was that night at 8:30. And I think some guys didn't even realize he had signed that day with the Redskins. So I got Adrian Peterson for $4 in that auction league. If not for that, I would have been screwed because I spent a ton of money on Kenyan Drake. So pardon me if I'm a little bit jaded. Darrell Henderson in the 6th round. Whoa, Nelly. That is really high. I get that. I mean, I've had several people have said this guy is that he is maybe the best running back in this draft. I saw multiple people say that he may be better than Josh Jacobs, maybe better than Miles Sanders. I don't know. I don't watch enough college football to know that. You would know better, way better than I would. But I mean, Todd Gurley, even with the injury, he went in the 1st round. Like, he's being drafted in the 2nd round. Like, even with the arthritic knees, we're still expecting Todd Gurley to get a boatload of carries, right? Do we think that offense is going to sustain 2 running backs all year? I don't think so. I think that offense is going to regress. And I know that people say, well, they had 2 running backs in the playoffs. Not really. Todd Gurley was barely used. They fed the ball to one guy. It was C.J. Anderson in the playoffs last year. I don't think that offense is going to be able to sustain 2 running backs. And you're going to tell me that in the 6th round, you're taking a guy that may not get – I mean, he may average 5 or 6 carries a game this year. I mean, if Todd Gurley ends up being injured and Darrell Henderson's legit, and if that offense doesn't go into the tank, then, yeah, this is a good pick. But those are 3 significant ifs for a 6th round pick. To me, Darrell Henderson's not in my top 50 running backs. And so I don't think I'm taking him until round 10. This is very surprising to me that he's being valued this way. Maybe I'm in the minority. Deshaun Watson, quarterback, obviously too early. Darius Geis in the 6th round, coming off an ACL. He's never played a down in the NFL, right? I mean, we played preseason, but And Adrian Peterson's coming back, and we don't know what that offense is going to look like. We don't know who's playing quarterback for most of the year. That seems like a very, very high pick. Robbie Anderson, I like. And I think maybe looking at a tight end in this spot is not a terrible idea. I'm not doing it, but I'm probably, Evan Ingram here. I think Evan Ingram has a chance to be a special type player. So Evan Ingram in the 6th. I don't love it, but not terrible. If I'm in your spot, as much as I love Robbie Anderson, I probably like Corey Davis a little more. And so if this were me, I probably would have taken Corey Davis over Robbie Anderson. Now I love Robbie Anderson. I love me. I love me that 151-pound man. But I think I like a couple other guys a little more in that spot. Golden Tate I would have considered in that spot. Maybe Miles Sanders I might have considered even in that spot. I think he's been injured, so maybe not. Hard to know what's going to happen here. I think there's a couple other guys I would like more in that spot.
I could see that we're going to have a big disagreement on Corey Davis because I actually, when you were talking, I quickly looked up where I have Corey Davis in my receiver rankings. So I have Robbie Anderson 21st in my receiver rankings. I have Corey Davis 31st. I don't like Corey Davis at all. Like, he hasn't shown anything. He's had a couple of nice performances here and there, but I don't think he's shown the ability to be consistent. And even if he has shown some flashes, I don't trust Marcus Mariota to stay healthy. He gets injured all the time. I know they signed Ryan Tannehill, but Tannehill is not great. He's better than Blaine Gabbert was last year. But I don't want to bank on that Titans offense at all. It feels like they just want to run the ball 35 times and just not throw the ball at all. Like, it just seems like that's what they want to do. I don't know. I don't know about Corey Davis. What do you see in him?
I think he's got all the raw potential to be a phenomenal receiver in the NFL. He's had major bonehead plays. He's had injuries. He's had inconsistencies. He's in a funky offense. All that is true. All of those are really good reasons not to draft him. I get it. Man, when I watch him run after, when I watch him go up and high point the ball, he has a couple abilities that usually don't go together. He has the ability to high point the ball the way Julio Jones does it. Not quite as good, but similar. A couple other guys that do that. Alshon Jeffrey does that almost as good as anyone in the NFL. Also, the long ball tracking, like the ability for a quarterback to just throw the ball as far as he can, and for the receiver to kind of track where it's going to be. I don't think people realize how hard of a skill set that is. Dante Pettis seems to have it. Deshaun Jackson is the best at it in the NFL for sure. Has been for a long time. Odell Beckham Jr. has that skill. Corey Davis looks like the kind of guy that has that ability. Now, he hasn't done it a lot, obviously. So I'm going off of projection and potential here. And in this part of the draft, this is where I'm willing to start taking some significant risk. So I recognize that it's a lower floor than a Robbie Anderson, but I think he's got a higher ceiling.
I don't disagree with anything you said. The problem is that he plays in such a run-heavy, plodding, slow-paced offense with a quarterback, by the way, who runs the ball a lot and takes away targets from receivers because he scrambles. I don't know. I definitely agree with you with the potential, but in that offense, like if somehow, if like Mariota goes down and like Ryan Tannehill with a different coaching staff somehow turns into a Pro Bowl quarterback, which I don't think is going to happen. But in that scenario, I could see like Corey Davis having a breakout season. But in this current state of offense, I don't want any part of any Tennessee player, except for maybe Derrick Henry, but he's going too early for my liking too. So,
we didn't mention him. He went too early too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. If Henry were going like around later, I would like him. But he's going too early. I think people are looking at a small sample size of what happened last year. I actually like Dion Lewis a little bit as kind of a leverage play against Henry because I think Henry might take a step back. And in a PPR format, I think Lewis could have some potential this year, especially if Henry goes down. Lewis is going to have a huge season as a pass catcher.
Yeah, I know there's one guy that I'm unsure about. I don't have a strong opinion on, but he just went in this is Phillip Lindsey. You were really hot on Phillip Lindsey, way ahead of most of the other guys I know. And you had him in a lot of leagues.
That was another running back I got late. I got Lindsey in like almost every league.
I'm not sure where to rank him. I feel like I'm all over the map with him. So thoughts on Lindsey and his prospects for this year?
I think this is where he should go, round 6. Though I like Lindsey a lot as a player. The problem is that they lost their center. They signed a right tackle to be better there, but they lost their center. They drafted an offensive lineman in the 2nd round, Dalton Reisner. Charlie Campbell's not our NFL draft analyst. He's not a fan of Reisner at all. He labeled him as one of his potential busts for rookies this year. So if Charlie's right and Reisner struggles, then Denver's run blocking is not going to be as good. So I think Lindsey could take a step back in that regard. And there's also the new coaching staff, and maybe the new coaching staff likes Royce Freeman more. Like that could be possible. So I think there's risk attached to Lindsey, but I think Lindsey's upside's like good enough to warrant a pick in the 6th round. It's kind of like what you were talking about with Corey Davis. Like Corey Davis has immense potential, but he has a low floor. It's kind of like with Lindsey. I think Lindsey has great potential too, and he has a low floor as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned Darrell Henderson. I mean, he's super talented. I worry about his like mental makeup a little bit. I don't know if he can handle the media, especially in LA. I worry about that. But if you're trying to leverage the Todd Gurley injury, let's just say that you're convinced that Gurley's not going to play a full season. Maybe he only plays like 4 games or something. Like, let's just say you're like super pessimistic about Gurley. Where would you draft Henderson at that point?
If I'm super pessimistic about him, this is probably where I'm drafting him then.
Okay. Yeah.
In this range. So to me, but I'm not super pessimistic on Todd Gurley. I don't know what to think of Todd Gurley. I'm not super optimistic either. I'm not sure what to think of him. So that's why to me, this feels very high unless you are absolutely convinced Gurley's not going to play at all this year or is going to play so little, which I guess you can make a case. I mean, what we saw in the playoffs was remarkable. What we saw the first 15 weeks of the NFL season compared to what we saw in the last 2 weeks of the regular season and the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, is remarkable, right? I mean, Todd Gurley got on a per game basis, I think it was a third of the carries he was getting in the regular or touches he was getting in the regular season. I mean, it was a remarkable drop off. If that's what we see again, if that's a precursor of what's going to happen this year or foreshadowing, then maybe this pick is not that bad. I have a hard time. I guess I don't know what to believe, I guess is really my issue.
It's a tough call. It really is. I feel like that's going to define so many fantasy leagues and teams this season is Gurley's injury. Like he's either going to be fantastic and whoever drafts him is going to be, in the playoffs, or he's going to be super injured and the team that drafts him is not going to be in playoff contention, which is again why I'm not going to, I'm going to avoid him just because of the just the risk factor. All right, round 7, the first 5 picks before mine: Russell Wilson, Hunter Henry, Sterling Shepard, Eric Ebron, and then Miles Sanders. My pick was Kareem Hunt. And then the next 6 picks: N'Keal Harry, Rashad Penny, Golden Tate, Cortland Sutton, Mecole Hardman, and then Marvin Jones to finish off round 7. So what are your thoughts here?
What the hell are some of these guys doing with these picks? What? Okay. Now in this format, in the 7th round, I start seriously considering about a quarterback or tight end. I'm still not likely to draft either one of those positions until round 9 or 10. But I'm at least thinking about it. If there's a phenomenal tight end or a phenomenal quarterback on the board, then and there's question marks at every other position, then I'm thinking about it. And I tell you, the guy that I think is a great potential talent is Hunter Henry. I love Hunter Henry. I am 100% convinced that at some point in the next few years, Hunter Henry will be the best tight end in the NFL. He will be the Rob Gronkowski, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, the Antonio Gates, the guy that everyone wants to draft early, at the tight end position. I just don't know when that's going to be. And I thought for sure it was going to be 2019, assuming he played in 2018, but he missed the entire year. It's been more than a year now since he tore the ACL. So, maybe he comes back full. So I might be thinking Hunter Henry in this spot. So I actually, a little risky, but I like Hunter Henry here. I legitimately, I don't think people realize how talented he is. His hands and body control is off the charts. He's really great. Russell Wilson, I got a man crush on him. I love Russell Wilson. So I'm always going to consider Russell Wilson. Kareem Hunt, as we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have taken him in 7. I probably look him in the 8th because I don't know, but it's not a terrible pick, but it's a little bit more than I'd want. The picks after you, I think, pretty much are unanimously terrible, except for all of them, except Golden Tate. Golden Tate I like. And depending on if I didn't have a receiver yet, Golden Tate would have been a really great pick here in the 7th round. But Harry for the Patriots, we don't know what the hell he's going to do. I don't know. Rashad Penny, he's a bust. He's not good. Cortland Sutton, he's okay. We don't know what to expect. That offense, Joe Flacco's, who knows what Joe Flacco's going to be doing this, and how long he's going to be playing. And what? Wasn't like Cortland Sutton lit it up last year when after Thomas got traded. Hardman, what? In the set, what? I think he's a 14th round pick. What are you talking about? Marvin Jones, he's a 7th round pick in 2014. What are these? Are these guys smoking crack? This is terrible. This was a terrible round for most of these guys.
Sounds like you don't think these people are experts.
No, this is awful.
Well, I guess that makes my Hunt pick look better. I agree with you. I wasn't crazy about Hunt. I actually wanted him in the 8th round. I was looking at some of these players left. I was like, I have to draft a quarterback in the 8th or 9th round, and the quarterbacks I like are probably going to be there. And so I was like, but there's a chance I might not get Hunt in the 8th round. And so that's what my thinking was behind Kareem Hunt. And when Kareem Hunt comes off suspension, if I'm contention for the playoffs, that's gonna be a huge boost. I mean, Hunt is an amazing talent. He's gonna catch lots of passes. Nick Chubb is an amazing running back, but he's not a pass catcher, and Kareem Hunt's gonna take that role in Cleveland. But yeah, I agree. Some of these other picks aren't great. I don't think Rashad Penny's that bad because
he's terrible. He's awful. He stinks.
I wouldn't say I love the pick, but I don't think it's that bad. I think it's maybe it's the best out of these in the late in the 7th round, because I agree with you. It's kind of like a barren wasteland of good draft picks.
Yeah, I think in this spot, if I'm in the middle of the 7th round, I am either I might have taken a shot here if Golden Tate's on the board. Yeah, I like the Golden Tate pick. The picks after that I like here, I might have taken a shot on Njoku here, because I think Njoku has a chance to be a really special player, talent-wise. So maybe I take a tight end in the 7th, and in the middle of the 7th round. But I think if I were you, I probably would have gone Golden Tate. But I understand the Kareem Hunt pick. I get it, and you're right. If you're in contention, and if Kareem Hunt comes back and he's the player we've seen, and now they've got this unbelievable 1-2 punch at running back, or God forbid if Nick Chubb is injured and now Hunt steps in, can you imagine putting Kareem Hunt in as your flex now? Yeah, you're gonna be pretty. That offense is gonna look really good.
Oh yeah, for sure. And to real quick about Hunter Henry, I agree with what you were saying about him. You were talking about Mike Williams' touchdowns going down. I think Hunter Henry's return might be a reason for that. He's gonna catch 6+ touchdowns, maybe 8 or 9 in that offense. All right, round 8. The 6 picks before mine: Will Fuller, Ronald Jones, your favorite running back, Lamar Miller, Latavius Murray, Jordan Howard, and then David Njoku, as you mentioned. My pick was Cam Newton, and then the other 5 picks: Jared Cook, Matt Ryan, Adrian Peterson, Tyreek Hill, and Dante Pettis. So what are your thoughts on round 8?
This is much better than round 7, in my opinion, overall, top to bottom. I don't love Will Fuller, but in the 8th round, that's fine. He's just too hit or miss for me. Ronald Jones, the guy's got all the talent in the world, right? We saw him in college, but it's between the ears, right? He's a head case. If he can figure it out, and if that offense can be better under the new coaching regime, then maybe he's great. I mean, I loved him. I toted him all last offseason, and I kept having to lower him. I ended up owning him in several drafts, and he's a total bust and frustrating. I'm not drafting him at all because I'm just jaded and I'm angry. And I just hope he gets explosive diarrhea all year. That's what I hope. That's what I hope for him. So, I'm just angry and bitter. That's all. But if he's great, if he not even if he's great, if he's just what we thought he could be out of college, it's a really good pick, Ronald Jones in the 8th. I'm not sure. I think the floor is really low. Who knows? What if he gets, a total of like 100 carries all year, and he has like, 343 yards, something like that. Like, and like one touchdown. Like, that's well within the realm of possibility. That's in the range of outcomes. I'm not touching Ronald Jones. Lamar Miller, I think, is similar. Lamar Miller, like, he's another guy. He's inconsistent, injury riddled, overachieves on like a limited talent. And then just when you think he's dead, he kind of bounces back and has a couple good games and like sneaks his way back into the, top half of the fantasy draft. Like, so I don't love Lamar Miller, but I'm kind of done writing him off as well. I guess I've written him off 2 seasons in a row. So Latavius Murray, he's not going to get the ball ever in that draft. Last year he looked like he was running around with cinder block shoes. Jordan Howard, I like. Jordan Howard's had a great offseason. And I think he's a better pass catcher than people realize. And the Eagles are going to utilize that. I like Njoku. I like drafting a quarterback here as I'm looking at who's left. Cam Newton in the middle of the 8th is good. I like Carson Wentz more. I legitimately think Carson Wentz has a legit ability to potentially be an MVP candidate. So I think I like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Carson Wentz all ahead of Cam Newton in this spot. But the reality is you can make an argument for any one of those guys in that spot, right? I mean, I don't know. I think Cam Newton's got the rushing touchdowns possibility. So I like your thinking here in getting ahead of the quarterback run. And in this spot, you had Newton, Brees, Brady, Wentz. All those guys are still on the board. I like, you might even throw a Jameis Winston in that mix potentially. I like all those guys. So there's potential there. Jared Cook, I think he's just okay. You got Matt Ryan, Adrian Peterson. I really like Adrian Peterson there in the 8th round. I think he's going to be the number 1 running back there. If you get to the 7th or 8th round and you don't have a quality running back depth, I think Adrian Peterson could be a great pick. Like, let's say you had not gotten, you had not drafted Davante Freeman. When you got to the 7th round, instead of Kareem Hunt, you play it safe by taking Adrian Peterson. Because while Kareem Hunt has a higher ceiling, you know what to expect from Peterson a little bit. But I think that Tyreek Hill in the 8th, man, if Tyreek Hill only gets like a 4-game suspension, like how good is this pick going to look, right?
Oh my God, it'd be amazing.
And then Dante Pettis, to me, he's, again, in a couple weeks when we do our bust and sleepers, Dante Pettis is going to be very close to the top of my list. The guy has unbelievable ball skills and speed, and Jimmy G is going to come back healthy, and they've upgraded the offense. Pettis coming in the 2nd year, I am all in on Dante Pettis. I will probably end up drafting him a round or 2 early just to make sure I get him. Like if you had drafted Pettis in the 7th round, I would have totally been okay with it because I really like Pettis a lot. I think he's got a chance to be a really special player, easily top 20 receiver, if not better. I think he has that kind of potential.
Yeah, we saw Pettis play well at the end of last year with Nick Mullins. So imagine what he's going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I like Pettis a lot too. Tyreek Hill is interesting. So if I didn't draft Kareem Hunt in the 7th round, I think I would have taken Tyreek Hill here. I don't think I could have drafted both of them. Like, that's such a huge void on my roster to have like 2 empty spots in the middle of the draft just wasted on guys just not going to play for a while. And like, you never know. Tyreek Hill might get a year-long suspension because we heard the audio from that tape, and I don't know why the police aren't pursuing it. Like, he incriminated himself on audio. But yeah, so who knows what the NFL is going to do. I think he's going to get an 8-game suspension, but anything from 4 to a full season wouldn't surprise me at all. So I'm curious to see what happens with Tyreek Hill. The Adrian Peterson pick, I agree with you that I like him here in the 8th round, but something to watch with Peterson is Trent Williams' status. So Williams came out and said that he's never going to play for the Redskins again. And but there, after that, like 2 weeks later, there were conflicting reports about him maybe coming back to training camp and like walking back those words. If Trent Williams is not in that lineup, the Redskins are not going to be able to run the ball at all. He's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. And while the Redskins still have good offensive linemen like Brandon Scherf and Morgan Moses, like those guys have been injured frequently. So if one of those guys goes down, the Redskins are going to have suddenly one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. So I wouldn't want Peterson at that point. But if Williams comes back, then I'll be more optimistic about Peterson. So yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said. Otherwise, in this round, I'm more optimistic about Ronald Jones. There have been positive reports coming out of Tampa, and I like Bruce Arians a lot as a head coach. So I think he's going to get a lot out of kind of like the disappointing players we've seen. So you mentioned Jameis Winston as a potential quarterback. I think Winston has good potential this year. I mean, he's still a knucklehead, and he could still be a bust. But I think I like Winston this year more than last year for sure.
Yeah, I think I think I'm not going to be drafting a whole lot of guys on that squad until I see something. Maybe I've just been burned one too many times by some of those players.
I don't blame you, but I think Bruce Arians really fixes that. I think if this was still Dirk Cutter or another, journeyman head coach, I would not be optimistic about the Buccaneers. But Bruce Arians kind of changes things for me. I have a lot of faith in Arians. I think he's great. All right, so round 9, the first 5 picks before mine: LaShawn McCoy, Larry Fitzgerald. What is this, like 2012, 2010 fantasy draft? And Cristian Kirk, Dede Westbrook, and Royce Freeman. And then my pick, Carson Wentz, the guy you mentioned earlier. So I went back-to-back quarterbacks. To finish off the 9th round, Nyheim Hines, Jameis Winston, as we mentioned, James Washington, Deshaun Jackson, Geronimo Allison, and Emmanuel Sanders. So what are your thoughts on round 9?
Now, listen, as much as I love Carson Wentz, I guess I don't understand the back-to-back quarterback there. I would have gone quarterback in round 8, and then I would have just drafted someone much later, like a Darnold or, maybe Kyler Murray later or some other. I guess I'm curious why spend the pick there. I guess you can answer that. But I guess I'm curious there. Royce Freeman, I don't know what to think of this guy. I mean, he could be the pick of the draft, right? Like there was so much hype around him coming into last year. I don't know what to think of him. Dede Westbrook, I like a lot. Just not sure what that offense is going to be, but I think he's a great route runner. I think he's good. He does everything well. He's not phenomenal at any one thing other than the route running. And they spread the ball around a lot in that offense anyway. Cristian Kirk is an interesting player. I don't love his talent, but a lot of people that I respect seem to like him. So when I watched him play last year, I didn't see anything really remarkable on film, but I could be wrong. Larry Fitzgerald, man, he's just steady. So I like Nyheim Hines a lot. I think he's more talented overall than Marlon Mack. I think I'm in the minority there. When I watch the two of them play, Marlon Mack is a fine player. I think Nyheim Hines to me is like he's the game breaker kind of player. He's got that. It's kind of a poor man's Alvin Kamara. Obviously not nearly that talented, but that kind of flavor, has that kind of ability. And if he can just improve a little bit in the run blocking or pass blocking, he's going to get on the field a lot. That was a little bit of an issue for him last year, which is normal for young players. If he can improve a little bit in that area, he's going to see the field a lot. And so I like him there. James Washington, to me, it's like, I don't know, he's just a dude, whatever. Like, I don't know, just to me in the 9th round, I don't want to just take guys who are just dudes. I want to take guys that have real quality upside. Emmanuel Sanders, to me, he's fine, just a dude. Geronimo Allison, like, he's just a dude, but he's playing with Aaron Rodgers. So he's just a dude that has a more upside, not because of his talent, but because of the quarterback. So of any of those picks, I'm taking a stab at Geronimo Allison, maybe, with the exception of Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson is being underrated, in my opinion, in a lot of drafts. I think Deshaun Jackson should be going higher. I know he's got injury risk. I know that, we don't know for sure, but I mean, I think this is the best quarterback Deshaun Jackson ever played with, right? Like, he played with McNabb a little bit. McNabb was very good. He played with Michael Vick when Michael Vick was, MVP caliber type player for 10 games and then went back to being regular Michael Vick. He's played with Nick Foles, Nicky Franchise, my boy. Right. He's played with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick and who are the bums he played with in Washington? I can't remember the bums they had there. Kirk Cousins. Yeah, Kirk Cousins for a while.
Colt McCoy when he was Cousins was injured. Yeah.
I mean, the fourth year Carson Wentz, fully healthy, might be the best quarterback play he's ever had, and this is probably the best offensive coaching staff he's probably ever had. I know Chip Kelly was good for numbers, but he ended up being Foe, obviously. I think you can make a case this is the best quarterback coach offensive system Deshaun Jackson's ever been in. And he has not shown any signs of slowing down. He still has the best long game in the NFL. Deshaun Jackson scoring 10 touchdowns is not out of the realm of possibility. 9th round. I mean, I think he should be at least a 7th round pick. Has the potential to give you like 5th round value. So I love Deshaun Jackson in the 9th round. It's probably one of the best value picks I think so far.
I agree. I think Deshaun Jackson can have a great year. I've been previously down on Deshaun Jackson. He's made my all NFL overrated team when I used to do that list in the past because I called him, he's a one-trick pony, and I still maintain that. Like he doesn't really do anything except run, go routes deep and catch deep passes from time to time, and he's great at that. But he doesn't really do anything else well. But from a fantasy perspective, with Carson Wentz, I think you make a great point where he hasn't had a great quarterback like this. He's had some spurts. You mentioned Vic before, and then Nick Foles had a great season in 2013. But yeah, by far, I don't think you can even argue it. Like it's I think Wentz is by far the best quarterback he's ever worked with. So I think Deshaun Jackson could have a great year for sure. So some of the other guys you mentioned, Cristian Kirk, I like Kirk. Like last year he wasn't great, but he was a rookie. He was playing with Josh Rosen. I'm willing to take a chance with him. Although you're going to have that issue where like Kyler Murray's going to run around a lot. He's going to take snaps. He's going to take targets away from Kirk. So that's my concern there. Fitzgerald, same thing. It's the same problem. Has Fitzgerald ever played with a mobile quarterback like Kyler Murray, right? It's been Kurt Warner, it's been Carson Palmer, and then he's had a bunch of bums like Max Hall and John Skelton. Has he ever played with a mobile quarterback like this? I don't think he has, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who was the early quarterbacks he played with before Kurt Warner. From the 03 to 09 seasons, and I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think he's had anyone that's really mobile or really even adequate in any facet of the game, let alone running. Yeah, I think Murray might be the most talented guy he's ever played with. I know you can make a case for Kurt Warner, but I think Murray might be more talented than Kurt Warner was, and he's certainly going to be much more unique than anything we've seen from Larry Fitzgerald. So, Larry Fitzgerald has shown me like he has been able to reinvent his game in a way that very few wide receivers we've ever seen. We've actually, I would say we've never seen a receiver reinvent himself over the course of his career like we've seen Larry Fitzgerald over the last 5 years. Pretty remarkable, and it's extended his career. I mean, he's going into his 16th season, I think. He was in the 03 draft. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. And he's still a productive player. Clearly not the same speed he once had, but the same hands, the same route running. He's as smart as ever. He's in great shape, great body control. You could do a lot worse than Larry Fitzgerald in the 9th round with a potential Kyler Murray, dumping the ball off to the slot receiver kind of player.
So I the quarterbacks that Larry Fitzgerald had, thanks to the power of the internet. Before Kurt Warner, he had 3 guys who led the team in passing. Some interesting names. Jeff Blake led the team in passing in 03. Then there was Josh McCown led the team in passing in 04, which is unbelievable.
The recently retired Josh McCown.
Yeah, he's been around forever. It's crazy. Real quick on McCown, I was a little upset that he took a job with ESPN because I thought he'd be a great coach. I thought McCown could be a head coach in like 8 to 10 years. Like I think he's that bright. Like I think he could do it. But at least he's going to have good analysis on ESPN. So there's that. And the third quarterback, of course, Nick Lachey's best friend, Matt Leinart. His hot tub buddy. Those are Larry Fitzgerald's early quarterbacks before Kurt Warner. So really not there. I mean, Jeff Blake was mobile, but he wasn't that mobile. Like he only had 150 or so rushing yards that year. He's not going to like. He didn't run nearly as much as Kyler Murray will.
Forgot about Matt Leinart. Oh man, how remarkable! The lefty.
Yeah. And Nick Lachey's hot tub buddy. So that was fun times. So you asked about my strategy with the two quarterbacks. It's actually something I do a lot. I remember the one year sticks out to me in our league. Actually, it was this is a year I won one of my championships in our league. In the 8th round, I drafted Jay Cutler back when he was with Denver, and then was it Denver? Maybe it was the Bears. I forget. And then in the 9th round, I drafted Matt Schaub, and someone pointed out to me, they're like, "Well, both your quarterbacks have week 8 buys." I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm taking the 2 best quarterbacks in the middle of the draft. That's what I always do. My thinking here is that quarterbacks produce the most points. And if your quarterback goes down, you're gonna have a big time problem on your hands, finding a replacement. Because I think we talked about finding running backs and receivers late. I think quarterback is the hardest position to find late. Like there are only 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and like 8 of them are horrible. So like you only have a group of 24. Most of them are owned, and then you might have like an Eli Manning have a great matchup one week. And in a league last year, I actually started Eli Manning in the semifinals because I had Garoppolo and someone else who got hurt. So you're going to have that, but it's very difficult to find a replacement at quarterback. So I like having 2 guys I can start. Not only that, like regardless of the injury, like I can platoon Wentz and Newton. Like I could play them for the best matchup. And if one of them, like chances are one of them is going to have an easy type matchup each week, like they're going to score a ton of points. Like Wentz against a horrible defense, he's going to light up. Newton against a bad defense, same thing. So I like platooning them. I like, just avoiding injury risk here. And I mean, most of all, I love Wentz and Newton this year. I think they're both going to have great years. Both, Newton won MVP one year, and Wentz was going to win MVP before he got injured. I think they have great potential. Newton is healthy. Wentz sounds like he's healthy, and I just think they're going to have great seasons. So that's my thinking there.
I appreciate your thinking. I could not possibly disagree with you more on the replaceability of quarterback. I would say it's the easiest position to find a replacement at on the waiver wire. I've had so many seasons where I had bums at quarterback, and I won a fantasy title one year, literally rotating and just picking up guys off the waiver wire. Because I guess I'm really surprised to hear you say that, because maybe we'll have to make that maybe a larger topic of conversation down the road, and maybe look at some numbers. I find the quarterback position to be, and any given week, particularly with the NFL having evolved, where there's so many points scored every week, there's at least 1 or 2 guys on the waiver wire that have the chance to put up points. In fact, I think numberfire.com ran an article last year of the number of players that put up a top 10 performances at every position, and quarterback was the most. So I'll have to go back and find it. So again, I guess it's funny that this is the second time in this episode where we've had like total different philosophy approaches on positions.
Here's the thing though. If you're hurting a quarterback and you're trying to find a new quarterback each week, you might be able to do that if you're like in playoff contention or you're like the 5th or the 6th seed. If you're one of the top seeds and your quarterback goes down, you're not going to have waiver wire priority, and someone else might snag the quarterback you're trying to get. And like that's an issue for me. That's arisen for me in the past. And I was in 3 leagues last year where I had Jimmy Garoppolo as one of my quarterbacks. In 2 of the leagues where I had a good backup quarterback, I went to the finals. In the 1 league where I didn't, I did not. Like it just flamed out because I didn't have a good backup quarterback. I think in my history of playing fantasy football, I think you need 2 good quarterbacks. I get what you're saying, and you can I agree with you. You can find good matchups some weeks, but some weeks you can't. And in that 1 league where I said I started Eli Manning in the semifinals, that worked out. And then in the championship, I had nothing. I couldn't find a good matchup in the finals week at all. Like I scoured the waiver wire. I had to start some bum. I can't remember who it was. I had to start some bum, and he did nothing. And like I just screwed. And so I think you need this is something I like doing. This is something I've always done. Rounds 8 through 11, I'll draft 2 quarterbacks.
That's interesting. I'm going to do is I'll do the math. I think the math will show that the quarterback is the easiest position to replace off the waiver wire most of the time. But that'll be later in the summer project when I'm not pretending to be a doctoral PhD student.
All right, I look forward to seeing that. So yeah, again, it cost me a championship not having a good backup quarterback last year. So, and I think I only lost by a few points. Like if I had a good quarterback, I would have won. Anyway, it's only one example though. So maybe it's not a good idea to use that. But anyway, round 10, the first 6 picks before mine: Drew Brees, Devontae Parker, Tom Brady, Jared Goff, Chris Herndon, and then Anthony Miller. My pick was Deontay Foreman. Then the other picks: Kyler Murray, Curtis Samuel, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kiki Kuti, and Dak Prescott to close out round 10. So what do you think about these picks?
This shows me that if you're going to go quarterback late, if this is the typical ADP for these guys, then round 9 is the best place to target a quarterback because you're going to have some good options available in a lot of leagues. You know, maybe Matthew Ryan drops in leagues, but if a Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Kyler Murray, potentially are all going to be there, I'm waiting late. Again, this is all the more reason in my mind to not draft the quarterback early. When I see these guys sitting around 10, it makes the Patrick Mahomes pick in the second round look all the worse. So I think generally there, Foreman, it's kind of like he was a nice player coming out, but with the injury, we don't know what this guy can do, right? Like it feels like we don't really know what he is. And so maybe that changes this year. And he hasn't been great. I think at this point of the draft, you're kind of taking some darts, right? You're taking shots at guys. You see that, hey, okay, we'll see what we have to available there, see what's there. I have not seen Marquis Brown go off the board yet, right? He's a guy I'm probably targeting here. I like him. I like Curtis Samuel. I'm probably targeting, those kind of guys. Those are the kind of guys I'm probably targeting in this spot of the draft. I like them more. I think Jamal Williams from Green Bay, he's probably a guy I'm targeting in this realm of the draft. So there seems to be some guys that have not gone off the board that I think should potentially be being drafted in this sort of realm of the draft. Austin Hooper, he's a tight end that I probably like more than maybe some others. So I think there's some guys that should be in this spot that are already kind of be. I mean, Chris Herndon, I don't think he's a top 20 tight end. I don't know. Like, just odd to see him going ahead of some guys that I think are better. I think Dallas Goedert, who's the second tight end in Philadelphia, is a better pick than Chris Herndon because of the offense and the talent. So I think it's an odd thing. I think the rookie in Detroit, from Iowa is a better option potentially. So it's some interesting picks here, but it's hard to kill picks in the 10th round, right? It's like it's the 10th round. They're all kind of dart throws from here on out, pretty much anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I liked Herndon, I should say, past tense, because news came out that he might be suspended 2 to 4 games because of I think a DOI. So I'm definitely not as high on Herndon as I was before, but he and Sam Darnold showed some good rapport, I thought, at the end of last year. So I think if we expect Darnold to make the next step, and we agree that he will, based on past conversations, I think Herndon is one of the players who could benefit from that. I can see Herndon having a pretty good season once he gets back from suspension, but we'll see what happens with that. With these other picks, with my pick, Foreman, you're right. We don't really know what he's going to get, but I think we know what we have in Lamar Miller, and Lamar Miller is not a good running back. He's just a guy, and the Texans don't think he can last an entire season. And I think there's a good chance that Foreman could establish himself as the starting running back.
If he stays healthy, playing in that offense with Watson, he's going to benefit. So I guess big deal. Can he stay healthy? Because if he can, he's at minimum going to share the carries evenly with Lamar Miller, probably, right? I would imagine that's his floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And then the quarterback picks, the quarterbacks you mentioned are fine. I think the one quarterback who's not fine in this round is Dak Prescott at the end of this round. I think he's the one guy who stands out who shouldn't be here. Do you agree?
Yeah, because I don't think he's that good. But
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Otherwise, I thought this round was fine. So before the show, we said that we'd stop at round 10, and then we talk about my picks going on, and maybe you'd find something that you liked or didn't like. Otherwise, I would like to share the first two picks in round 11 though, and get your thoughts on the two picks here: the Bears defense and the Chargers defense. Guessing you don't like those, right?
People, please don't draft the defense until the end of your last two picks should be a defense and a kicker. If you really, really want to get a great defense, if you really think, then maybe your third, if it's a 16 round, maybe in the 14th round you go defense, 15th round you go kicker, 16th round you go flyer. Like maybe that's acceptable, but even that I think is dumb for a couple of reasons. Number one, the top 3 defenses, fantasy defenses for the last 8 years have not been back in the top 3 the following season. I got to say this again. 8 years in a row. 8 years in a row, people. The top 3 defenses have not repeated to be the top 3 defenses the following season. It's just, and then I think it's something like, I think it's like 11 out of the last 13 number 1 defenses have not made it back into the top 3. We don't know. And I got to go back and look at the numbers. I'm writing this down because I got to go look this up. Okay. In the future, and we'll do an episode on this. Okay. But I'm pretty sure there's also like, if you look at the last 20 seasons, like the top defenses, like we're all drafted like as like the 9th to like 15th best defense. So like if you draft the number 1 defense off the board, statistically speaking, it's guaranteed not to be the best defense. Like if you draft a defense, like if you like draft like one of the first 7 defenses that come off the board in your league, statistically speaking, you are pretty much guaranteed to be overpaying. So don't do it. Stop it.
Or if you're in our league, please do it. So we got better sleepers.
If you're in my league, do it. That's right.
That's the conversation we had about kickers. I think I said this before a while ago, but to rehash it, we were having a conversation in our fantasy draft chat on Facebook, I think, and people were like, or you made an argument about abolishing kickers in fantasy. And then like, I privately messaged you. I'm like, Kenny, what are you doing? Like these people are drafting kickers early in our league. Like we're taking advantage of this. Don't stop this banter and like, just let people draft kickers.
Yeah, for several years, I was trumpeting the horn that we need to get rid of kickers because I hate kickers in fantasy football. Oh, they're so stupid because they're so sporadic and so crazy. But and then I was pushing it really hard. And you sent me a message saying, hey, don't you know who some of these guys in our leagues are? And we've seen kickers get drafted really high. It's funny because that league there's some guys that really know what they're doing, and there's a couple guys that draft kickers in the 6th round.
Yeah,
like there's some terrible picks some years. I mean, it's laughable. It's great, but yeah. So then, literally after like 5 years of me trying to push, I instantly had like a complete change of heart. It literally took one Facebook message. And I was like, I paused and I was like, I think Walt's right. This is actually really smart. So, yeah. So, and then I've been trying to be more strategic in utilizing the kicker position in using it as an extra roster spot, basically to stash players, as we wait for like, things to shake out or injury news. So I did it a couple times in our league, on a Tuesday. I may only have one roster spot for a free agent, but I'll drop my kicker and then add 2 players. And then later in the week, drop that player and add a kicker.
Yeah. I do that all the time.
So
yeah.
Obviously if people in your league get hip to it and then guys start picking up kickers and then dropping them just to kind of like, cause in our league, once a player gets dropped, you got to wait 48 hours before he can be picked up again. So you could get screwed if you're not careful, but I don't think most guys are smart enough to do that.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'd advocate. Just definitely use your kicker spot. That should be a temporary spot on your roster. Pick up a kicker Sunday morning or Saturday night. You'll be fine. It's not the end of the world if you get the 11th ranked kicker instead of the 4th ranked kicker you had before. It doesn't matter. These guys have such high variance that from one week a kicker might hit 5 field goals and the next week you might not score at all. And that's kind of why you're saying the kicker position kind of sucks at fantasy. It's such high variance, and just find a good kicker in good weather conditions playing against a mediocre defense or worse, and you'll be fine. So.
Yeah, there's one guy that I don't know where he got drafted or if he got drafted at all in your league. The one guy that I'm keeping on my radar is Ajayi. He's still a free agent. He's the guy that if you're drafting early, if you're drafting, in July or early August before maybe he gets signed, I think it's plausible that some running back gets hurt and a contending team signs him, or maybe a contending team brings him in. Pretty much what the Eagles did in 2017, right? I mean, they already had running backs, but they brought him in to share the load. He's got the arthritic knees as well. He's got the injury history. But I would be surprised if he doesn't end up on a contending team this year. Maybe there's some team we're not expecting to be really good. Maybe they're a middling team, but they end up being, maybe the Packers end up coming out gangbusters, and maybe Aaron Jones isn't as good as we anticipate. Maybe they bring in Ajayi to carry the load. And we've seen Ajayi in short stints. He's as dominant as anybody. He's the kind of guy, let's say like week 5, some team signs him. He's the kind of guy that could give you like top 5 running back fantasy numbers in the second half of the year. I mean, he's so, and you may be able to get him in the last round of your fantasy drafts, right? Or pretty late. So he's the one guy that I've kept on my radar. Of course, if he signs with someone earlier, that may end up impacting where he gets drafted or how that shakes out. But, what if the Rams decide they want to go all in on running backs with arthritic knees and they sign?
It's good. Full strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
I think Seattle's a team. Chris Carson is middling. He's kind of up and down. Looks like he's going to take the job. Then he kind of falls apart. Rashad Penny, I don't believe at all. And I think we're going to see that guy's a bust. Maybe they're having a really good season and they decide to bring him in. What if the Raiders decide, John Gruden's the kind of guy that they could bring him in. I think there's some potential there. I think maybe what if the Patriots brought him in if for some reason their guys are struggling? What if the Steelers were to bring him in? I think there's some spots where he could end up landing. Maybe the Saints. Latavius Murray looked done last year. I don't think he's going to be great. And can Kamara really carry the load? Maybe they decide that they want to, that they liked the idea of the 1-2 punch they had with Ingram and Kamara, and they want to bring in a Ajayi. I think there's some really interesting spots that a guy like Ajayi, who has tremendous talent. He's as talented as any running back in the NFL. I think that could be a really interesting thing to keep your eyes on.
Man, I wish I would have spoken to you before this draft because that's a good. You sold me on Ajayi. I think I'm going to draft Ajayi in like the last round of every league I'm in. Ajayi did not go in this draft at all, even though it's 18 rounds. I think you make a great point because some running back's going to tear his ACL. It happens all the time,
right? Every year.
Yeah. So whoever tears their ACL, who's the top running back available? It has to be Ajayi, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know who else it would be, unless, even if Marshawn Lynch comes out of retirement, I don't think I'd rather have Ajayi than Lynch at this point. So, I think that's a good strategy. Definitely. If you made it this far in this podcast, some good tips from Kenny there. Another guy you mentioned before we get to my picks, you mentioned Marquis Brown. I had a look where he was drafted. He was drafted in the 15th round of this league. So,
wow.
You want to talk about why you like Marquis Brown?
I think he's a speedy receiver, and we've seen the Ravens the last 2 years try to force the ball to speedy receivers down the field, and it hasn't quite worked. Mostly because of injury issues. The guys that they've had haven't quite worked out. They had Mike Wallace, and he was okay. He was fine. Then they had John Brown. That didn't quite work out. That was mostly because of injuries. And Lamar Jackson, I don't think he's good, but because of his legs, and he does have arm strength, I think that could be the kind of player that ends up being really unique. Like maybe they force the ball to him. So I think I like his talent, and I like the situation enough where I think I'm going to end up having him. I'm surprised 15th feels late. To me, he's more like a 12th to 14th, maybe closer to 12th. So I have a feeling I maybe end up higher on him than maybe other people are.
I think Marquise Brown is going to be someone to target in DraftKings and in big tournaments. against non-elite defenses or something, because he seems like all or nothing. Like I feel like Marquis Brown's going to have a game where he catches like 5 passes for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, something crazy like that. And then the next 3 weeks he's going to catch like 1 pass for 12 yards. Like he's not going to do anything for a while because Lamar Jackson's passing is so inconsistent. And the thing we talked about before, where Jackson's going to scramble a lot, and that's going to take away targets. But I think Brown this year is going to have 3 to 5 games where he just explodes and is awesome, and then doesn't do anything the other game. So I think he's someone to play in DraftKings more than anything else. But 15th round does seem like a little late. Like I feel like maybe someone I should have considered at that point.
I think about the guys that went in the draft. I mean, some of the guys that went in the 7th, 8th, 9th round, like in that draft, like Harry from the Patriots and even Fitzgerald. Like, I think Brown's got as much upside as any of those guys, right? And he's got as much upside as D.D. Westbrook. He's got as much upside than Tyrell Williams. I think he's a better player than Kiki Cutie. He's got way more upside than James Washington. Like you got some guys going ahead by 5 or 6 rounds that I think are comparable to him. So he potentially could be the number 1 passing option in that offense, which I know is not going to be phenomenal offense. I'm not making the case that it's going to be a great offense, but he legitimately could end up being the number 1 receiving threat in that offense. I think that's so I guess it's surprising to see that not be valued, and to see guys that I think are of equal talent or less go 5, 6 rounds ahead. That seems dramatic to me.
I mean, based on pure talent alone, he has way more upside than anyone you mentioned. I feel like the problem is the quarterback he's playing with and the offense he's playing in. Like they're going to be so run heavy. They're going to run the ball between Jackson and the running backs. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball like 35 to 40 times a game. So it's like how many passes is Jackson going to attempt? Like there are going to be some games where Jackson throws the ball like 10 times or 12 times. Especially if they have the lead, all they're going to do is run. Like they're not going to pass. So that's the concern there. But like I said before, Jackson's going to have 3 to 5 games where he just goes off. And, you want to catch that lightning in a bottle. That's why I mentioned DraftKings. If you're in a huge tournament on DraftKings, by the way, promo code WalterFootball, 1 word on DraftKings.
That's right.
If you're in a big tournament, you want these high upside guys. If you're playing cash games, you absolutely don't want Marquis Brown at all. But in 40,000 player tournaments, just put Brown in one lineup, even stack him with Jackson. And then, maybe you win. Maybe you win some good money. All right, let's get to my picks. So as I said before, it's 18 rounds. So I have 8 picks remaining. 11th round, I took Justice Hill, running back for the Ravens. The 12th round, I took Austin Hooper, my starting tight end from the Falcons.
That's a great pick. I love it.
I'm glad. I kind of thought you'd be on board with that. 13th round, Traquan Smith, wide receiver from the Saints. 14th round, my backup tight end, Tyler Eifert, tight end Bengals. Real quickly, I know you're going to say, backup tight end, but this in 18 roster leagues, I feel like you need a backup tight end. I've been in these 18 roster leagues before where my tight ends got injured, and I've had no one. Like last year, I was in a league similar to this, and my tight end got injured, and I couldn't pick up anyone. Like Charles Clay was like my best option, so like I was scarred for that. So anyway,
I love Charles Clay. By the way, he was my starting tight end like 4 out of 5 years, man.
You're so bad. So Tyler Eifert, 14th round, 15th round, Devin Singletary, running back from the Bills. 16th round, the aforementioned Dion Lewis, running back from the Titans. 17th round, wide receiver Jerron Brown from the Seahawks. And the 18th round, the Green Bay Packers defense. So was I done with these picks, or did I nail maybe one of them?
No, I actually, by the way, I agree with you in a league that size. Getting a backup tight end is not bad. The guy that I like that I'll probably be targeting as a backup tight end late in drafts, if I draft backup tight ends, would be Mark Andrews from Baltimore. I think he's got some nice talent. I like him, but Eifert, no one disagrees on Eifert's talent, right? It's to me, it's so sad what's happened with Tyler Eifert's career, because the guy was so good. He looked like he was going to be a dominant tight end. Have we seen a player get derailed with injuries so many different types of injuries. Like we've seen players get derailed with an injury, over the years, but like to have a guy that gets injured, like 4 completely different unrelated injuries all within a span of 2 years is like, just seems crazy. And it's really sad, but if Tyler Eifert is healthy, he's as good as anybody, right? I mean, he's great. So, I mean, he's way more talented than Austin Hooper, right? I mean, if you're just stacking those guys up talent-wise, Eifert's way better. But I actually like Hooper. I mentioned him actually. So I like Hooper a lot as a tight end. Hey, getting your starting tight end in the 12th round, I mean, it's a little early, but
I agree. It's a little early, but with I figured people are going to take their backup tight ends here, so thought I should take my starter.
For those who are new to the podcast, we've mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Last year in our league of record, in a 16 round league, I drafted 1 tight end in the 15th round. It was OJ Howard. And so
we were having a race for a while to see who would draft the tight end last. And people were taking their backup tight ends, and we were playing like a game of chicken, like who would take the tight end last at one point.
And I don't remember who you took in what round.
I think I took a tight end in the 14th round, and then you took one in the 15th.
So I and then I remember I think you said to me, Kenny, don't do it. Do the last round. Do it for the podcast. Do it for the podcast. And I said, no, I have to, because I actually drafted my defense before my tight end. How about that?
Very nice.
Yeah, I think the rest of your squad is great. I mean, you're taking a lot of dart throws, right? Anything past round 11 is like it's dart throws. So I think you're thinking of the right thing. I like the Packers defense, by the way, as a potential kind of a sneaky. I think they have the potential to be the number 1 defense type of defense. Like I think they got that kind of talent.
Yeah, I was going to ask you when we were doing our week 1 picks in almost 2 months and 2 weeks. When the Bears play the Packers on the opening night, I was going to ask, who is the better defense in that game?
I think it's close.
Yeah.
I think it's way closer than people realize.
I agree. The Bears lost Vic Fangio, their defense coordinator. They lost Bryce Callahan, who is great nickel. And you saw what the Packers added this offseason. They have 2 great edge rushers now. They added a safety. They have a great defensive line. Their linebackers not bad, and their cornerbacks are young. They drafted 2 guys in the first 2 rounds last year, so they're going to be better. I think the Packers could. I agree. I think they could have the number 1 defense, so I like them a lot. And I was almost tempted not to draft the defense in the 18th round. If you notice, I did not draft the kicker. I did not draft the defense. I almost didn't draft the defense, but I like the Packers a lot. I think I wanted them. And plus I had a queue set up for, because I might not have been at my computer. So I didn't want to lose the pick. So I had Justin Jackson and Deshaun Hamilton ahead of Packers defense. And they went 1 and 2 right before me. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to search for another player in the 18th round. I'm just going to take my defense. But the strategy with the kicker here is, I guess, the last thing we'll talk about. It's the same strategy as in the middle of the season. If you're drafting this early, unless you're drafting a couple of days before the season starts, do not draft the kicker. Just don't do it, because you want to spend as many picks as possible on sleepers. And if you're drafting this early, or even the middle or beginning of August, if you draft another potential sleeper, that pick could work out. The starter in front of him gets injured. All of a sudden you have a great player on your hands. If he's great in the preseason, all of a sudden you have a guy who could have gone 5 or 6 rounds earlier on your roster. And if that doesn't happen, then you just cut him and add a kicker later. Yep. Just use that kicker spot on your roster as potential upside. And then just worry about a kicker the day before your game, or even a few hours before the game.
I agree 100%.
Right. So definitely keep that in mind, unless you're in our league, and then otherwise draft the kicker. You weren't exaggerating, by the way, about the 6th round. There was one year where a guy drafted a kicker is Stephen Gostkowski in the 6th round. So
yeah. And let's not forget, you and I were in a league together back in 2000, I think 2000 or 2001, where wait, I want to interrupt you 1 second. I actually told this story. I have a book that I'm going to publish soon, and one chapter is the top 5 funniest fantasy football moments. This is number 2, so you tell it. Go ahead. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense were drafted number 1 overall. It's still great. Literally 20 years later, and it's still great. And
go ahead.
The best part was, I'm sorry to laugh on the. Okay, I'm sorry, people. Apologize. Okay, the best part was the guys. You got to say it.
The commissioner of the league was like, "Are you sure? Why are you taking Tampa Bay Buccaneers first?" And the guy was like, "Defense wins championships."
I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, guess who had the second pick that year? It was me. And the consensus guy that year was Marshall Faulk. It was Faulk and then no one else. And I was like, all right, who am I going to take? I had no idea. Man, I wish I had the first pick. It was going to be Marshall Faulk. And then he took Tampa Bay Buccaneers first. I'm like, yes, I got Faulk. And then the commissioner says, you're new to this. We're going to let you redraft your pick. He's like, you can get the Buccaneers defense later. And the guy's like, oh, really? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get Marshall Faulk. And then there was a glimmer of hope because he's like, oh, I have to decide who I'm going to pick. And he started going through his crumbled up fantasy mag. I'm like, wait, I still might get Marshall Faulk. And then he looks up. He's like, I guess I'll take Marshall Faulk. I'm done.
Still, yeah, I remember the moment. So Eric Goldsman, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. He was the commish, and he was the one that said, wait a minute. I don't remember the guy's name that picked the Buccaneers defense #1 overall.
I remember what he looked like exactly. He had slick back hair. He had glasses, thick Joe Paterno glasses. He was buried in his fantasy bag. He had no idea what he was doing.
and the Buccaneers defense was a really good defense.
Oh yeah, they're the best defense in the NFL. But you don't think of defense in the first round, first overall.
Oh, that's. It's funny. I can't wait till your book comes out. I'm excited to read. If that's #2, I can't imagine what #1. That'll be fun to read.
Oh my God. #1 was the most amazing fantasy football moment, maybe in the history of the world.
All right. I can't wait to read it. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, it involved, I don't want to spoil it. But there from that league, there's another moment in the top 5. I don't know if you remember, it involves, some emails you sent out.
Oh yeah. That's let's not talk about that one.
Yeah, it's probably for the best.
Don't mention me by name in that book.
Maybe I guess I got to make some edits.
Okay, it's fine. You can leave it in.
All right.
Let's just say I may or may not have sent a computer virus to some people.
Yeah,
there were some people who pissed me off in our league, and I sent them an easy computer virus that could easily be removed. It's just, it didn't damage their computers. It was just to inconvenience them for a day and piss them off. That was it.
Yeah,
I was like 19. You get it's what happens when you're a kid.
And where do those computer viruses come from? Me. I remember you messaged me. You're like, "Walt, do you have any computer viruses I could send these people?"
I love that made your book. I love that that's going to be in your book. That's so great.
There are 3 other great fantasy football moments. #1 will just blow your mind. I want to tease it. It involves a person taking a player twice. So
okay. I'm pretty much 99% sure no one is listening to this right now. Everyone is gone. They're all like, these 2 idiots.
Oh my God. Yeah. If you're listening to this, definitely check out the book when it's published. I'm hoping by the start of the season. But I need to write 2 more chapters and edit those chapters, and then I think I'm done. I just have to find a way to publish it. I'm going to self-publish because I'm tired of real quick. I'm tired of these publishing companies or these I don't know. I was talking to some woman I met at the Philadelphia Writers Conference, and she seemed super interested in the book. And, we had a couple of emails back and forth. And then she's like, "Oh, write a book proposal for me." I'm like, "I thought I sent you a book proposal." And she said, "No, find comparative books and then see, do research on how they've done." I'm like, that seems kind of tedious, but I did it. and I found like comparative books. I found like all their sales records. Like I put them all together in this file, and she emailed me back like 10 days later. She's like, "Oh, sorry, I was away. I checked it out, but there aren't enough comparative books." I'm like, are you serious? So like I went back and did more, and then again, the 10-day response time. She's like, "Oh, sorry, I was away again. Still not good enough. I need more." I'm like, "I'm done." I'm done. I'm like, forget it. I'm just gonna self-publish. This is so stupid. Like, either you like my book or not. Like, don't make me do research on this. Like, I'm just wasting time here. It's stupid. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, there are gonna be some serious things in there. Like it's a top 5 football list book. So it's like top 5 draft busts, top 5 what ifs in the NFL, like what if scenarios, top 5 players who never made the Pro Bowl, top 5 best teams to never win the Super Bowl. So like there are serious lists like that, but there are also some funny things like top 5 fantasy football moments that we're talking about, top 5 stories with women, football stories about women. So there's some interesting things there, including my life getting threatened by some guy who didn't want his daughter dating me. So there's that. So yeah, definitely check it out. You'll see updates on my site. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. So you're at fantasyjabber.com. What do you have going on this week?
I got nothing on the site but Twitter. Lots of Twitter.
And you're at Fantasy Jabber. I get all my not all, but I get some of my news from you when I log on to Twitter. I see you mention some stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, that happened. So you're definitely worth checking out at Fantasy Jabber. At waltzerfootball.com. Our season previews are coming up, so I have the entire AFC West is posted. So now that
Nice.
we're gonna go to the NFC West, and then the South, and then North, and then East. And then my Super Bowl pick. So, yeah, every day we're going to have a new season preview. So check that out. Otherwise, I will talk to you next week.
You the man, Walt.
All right, too. Bye.